Hello, everyone. This is MMA Interesting Prospects podcast. This is a second episode of WC Talk. And here we have a former WC title challenger, current UFC fighter, and of course, a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu legend, Rani Yahya. Hello, Rani. How are you?
I'm very good. Hope
F-
everyone who's listening is going well.
Thank you for the time. It will be nice to talk to you. And if we can start from beginning, because you of course you were a BJJ practitioner, and what was the reason behind you going to the MMA?
MMA was always my focus, my dream since the beginning. I started Jiu-Jitsu, I was 11 years old. It was 1996. The great achievement of a Jiu-Jitsu fighter at that time was not to be a jiu-jitsu champion. If you were a jiu-jitsu champion, that would mean that you would have to represent jiu-jitsu in no holds bar NHB, which is the old style of MMA, mixed martial arts. So that was my goal. Then jiu-jitsu evolved, NHB evolved. There was Pride, UFC, many other events, and became MMA, became mixed martial arts. And UFC made the thing global like it is now today. And I ended up becoming a mixed martial arts fighter. But like I said before, I still like I am a jiu-jitsu fighter fighting mixed martial arts.
And you made your pro debut in 2002. And at that point, do you thought that you can have such a long career as you have right now?
No, not really. At that time, I would expect to be retired maybe at 27 years old. At that time in 2002, I was 18. 18, yes. I didn't think that my career would go that long, you know. I think at maybe 27, maybe 30 years old, I'm actually flirting with retirement for a really long time. But what happens is there is always a bigger opportunity in front of me that makes me motivated to continue.
And before you made your WC debut, you fought in like many countries, many weight classes. You also competed in one night tournament, so you actually were an experienced guy as far as the MMA when you made your WC debut.
Yes, correct. I competed in a tournament. Uh, 3 fights in one night was like one of the most important day of my entire life because it was a very tense day. To make 3 fights to go in the ring. At that time, the fight was in a ring, was not even in the cage, because many fights used to go on rings, and and was a pretty intense day. 3 times in one night. I remember the first fight after I was done. I went back to my locker room, started to throw up. And then the guy who I was going to compete in the second fight was watching everything. We were all in the same locker room. And then the final fight, I got punched. My eye got swollen. I ended up finishing all the 3 fights. It was a pretty big night for me. I felt that I became a man that night.
And at that point, WC was the best American organization as far as the like lower weight classes. And how happy were you when they decided to contract to give you a contract?
On that moment, I was like 22 years old. I just became ADCC world champion at that time, you know. So I had I was having great proposals, you know. Uh, like I was having proposals from Japan because I had fought there before. And then UFC was growing so much, and then they announced that eventually they were gonna have the lower weight classes, bantamweight and featherweight in UFC. So, and they were using WC to to make people understand about those weight classes. And I felt pretty honored to be part of that. Uh, it was a pretty big step in my career.
And you debut in WC 28. Your opponent was Mark Hominick, a very good fighter. He actually, a few years after this, fought for the UFC featherweight title. So it's actually was a very, very good win. And it ended by quick submission. It was a rear naked choke, but also it was a featherweight bout. And after this, you get a fight for the bantamweight title. So if you can tell me what was the reason behind this, like weight classes change in weight classes?
When I fought Hominick, I competed at 145 and I was very light. I didn't have to cut much weight to do it. And I saw that people were cutting a lot of weight. You know, guys at featherweight was much bigger than me. So I felt that I could drop to bantamweight. And I told the WC guys, I actually told my manager at the time, and there was opportunity to fight for the title, you know, because the title fight that's supposed to happen, the contender got injured, and so I stepped in. But cut weight to bantamweight was not easy like I thought it would be. You know, was actually very difficult at the time, especially because I didn't have a nutrition, didn't have a good team behind me who would give me the right directions to do it, you know. So it became hard, something hard to do.
And at that point, what was the gym that you train at?
At that time, I was training at Team Quest in California, in Temecula. You know, I did most of my training there for this fight. Um, and Team Quest was pretty big at the time. Dan Henderson was the previous year, 2006, he became pride champion. Then at the same year, he fought for the UFC title, but they were not very focused on what I was doing. No, they were more focused on the other guys there, especially because I was a Brazilian guy, was an American team, and uh, uh, you know, I was like seen as a guy from out of the team who was trying to be part of the team. No, you know, they felt that they had bigger things to to give their time.
And on WC 30, you fought for the bantamweight title. Your opponent was Chase Beebe. Actually, I think that he's a forgotten man a little bit in MMA because he was a very good fighter. He was a defending champion, and you in that fight you had many like submission. You went for many submissions. It was a guillotine, it was a knee bar. You like all the time tried to finish the fight, but unfortunately for you, he won this fight. And how disappointed were you at that point that you weren't able to win a championship?
I was very disappointed. If you talk to me about one fight in my entire career, talking about jiu-jitsu, grappling, in mixed martial arts, one fight that if I was able, if I had the ability to change the past, I would, and if I had to do it to change one fight, it would be that fight, especially because that fight was a title fight. But the thing is that I was not prepared for the whole situation. First was the weight cut, was the first time of me dropping to 135, so I had no idea how to do it. I just uh, uh, followed my instinct to not eat and train a lot. And in the fight, I also didn't have the experience to have a very long fight. If you see my record before that fight, all my fights, most of my fights, I won by submission. There was only one fight that I won by decision. So I didn't have the ability to do a very long fight. And on that fight, I gave everything I had in the first 5 minutes, in the first round. I tried many submissions, like I won the first round, but I spent all my energy on the first round and I didn't recover for the following round. So my desire to win was not there anymore. It was just my body, and I got beat up for the next 4 rounds, and it was something that I definitely I needed to correct, do a better weight cut, better diet, and then start to spread my energy through the rounds. It's something that took more years for me to learn, because even after the fight, I was still a fighter who went to the finish right away in the first round and spent a lot of energy trying to submit my opponent. But after a few years, a few more fights, I started to learn how to be calm, how to win fights uh, by decision if I'm not able to finish the fight. To win fights by decision if I feel that I would spend a lot of energy winning by submission, trying to submit. You know,
And in this fight, I actually saw that you have one of, I think, the very underrated tool. It was your low kicks. You actually, for like whole of your career in WC and UFC, you have this really good low kicks. Maybe like people do not consider you as the like striker, but your kicks were like really dangerous weapon.
thank you. Yeah, it's a weapon that I use a lot. That is something that I really like to do. That I trained that for many years. And like I said, I feel more that I'm a jiu-jitsu fighter in the UFC, but I train a lot of striking. I train a lot of striking for many years, so I have some ability, In many fights, I use my low kicks to make the guy respect my striking. That would mean that if you get low kick one time or two times, you will not want be kicked there another time. So you would have to start to stop thinking about the takedown defense and start to strike with me. And then that would be the time where I would take the guy down, take the fight to the ground and finish. So that was my strategy for many fights, and it worked well in many fights. So I always like the low kick. Yeah.
And after this fight, you get a chance to fight on a K1 show. It was a fight against Yamamoto, and was it like WC allowed you to take this fight, or for the moment you were like out of the contract with them?
WC allowed me to take that fight. Yeah, they allowed, and it was a very big opportunity, because the paycheck there was very good for the time. It was a very good paycheck, so they allowed me. So I decided to take that fight. Yeah.
And your next fight in WC was WC 36 against Yoshihiro Maeda. You finished him by guillotine choke, and there was a moment that he tried a guillotine choke on you. In like whole of your career, were any kind of moments that you were close to being submitted, or you thought that you are in the trouble as far as the grappling?
Yeah, Maeda caught me on that submission. He tried that submission, the guillotine choke, but uh, uh, I was defended. I defended that very well. I stayed calm. I was very, very calm for that fight. And Maeda was a striker. You know, he's a striker. He had many wins by knockout. The moment that we engage on the grappling situation, even if he was trying the guillotine, is because I was bringing him to my game. So that's what I felt. So I kept myself very, very calm when he had the submission attempt. I defended well. I felt that his arms was not the same. And then I started to do what I did, started to do my game after that.
And actually, like all of your WC fights were against really good opponents, because Maeda at that point was like 30 fights veteran. He had, I believe, that 23 wins, so he was another top guy that you face in this organization.
Yeah, it's true. Maeda, and actually, he was a guy who I was watching for a really long time. He fought in Pride. He fought for the WC title before that fight. He fought against Miguel Torres, and I think a 3-round fight where the fight was pretty close, but he had a cut, so they gave the win to Miguel Torres, and he had many wins by knockout. So it was a pretty dangerous guy.
And in your next fight, you fought against Eddie Wineland. He was a former WC champion, and actually also a former contender for the UFC title. And it was another quick win for you. And do you think that it was the biggest win of your career in WEC?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think was the biggest win. Because was a former champion. Eventually, he fought for the UFC title as well. He's another guy who had many, many wins by knockout. And I won the fight in, I think, 67 seconds, if I'm not wrong. So I think was a very good win. You know, I didn't take any punishment. Was a big win for me, definitely.
And your next opponent, it was John Hossman. He's like a less known fighter, but he also had a great record. He was on a 7-fight winning streak, and it was another win, a submission win for you. It was this time a north-south choke. It's actually quite rare submission in MMA, maybe except the Jeff Monson, because he was known from this submission. And it was your third straight win. So did you thought in that time that you can get another shot for the championship?
Yeah, exactly. I thought I was. What they tell me at the time is that after I beat John Hosman, they told me, you win one more, you fight for the title. You know, so, and then that fight was in August. In September, I compete for the ADCC, and I hurt my arm very bad, and I had to go through surgery, you know, in my arm. And they told me, look, you're gonna fight in December. So I said, okay, so I go, even if my arm is hurt, even if I had the surgery, I'm gonna do a quick recovery and fight in December to then fight for the title. And there was a big mistake for me because I did miscommunicate too much with my manager, with the organization, because I shouldn't fight that fight because I had the injury in my arm and I had to have a proper recovery. You know, I was in my very best. You know, I had to have a proper recovery and then eventually fight another fight and then maybe fight for the title. So, so yeah. And then I fought Benavides and my arm was not well, so I decided to strike with him. I said, this is gonna be a striking fight. And he ended up knocking me out. Yeah.
Yes, but he also were like one of the also a top level guy at that point and in bantamweight division. So actually he fought for the title against Dominic Cruz a little bit after this. So another top level opponent in your career at that point.
Yeah, correct. A very top fighter, you know, very good fighter, definitely.
And then you fought against Takeya Mizugaki, also a veteran. He had a like great career in UFC after this. And after the last show of WC, did you know that you will be fighting in the UFC after this?
No, not really. I used to hear talks that eventually they're gonna make a fusion. They're gonna finish with the WC, and every fighter in the roster would go to the UFC. And I knew they were gonna pick some fighters, you know, the best fighters. And after the Mizugaki fight, you know, at that point I was 25. But remember, I told you I started at 18. I had more than 20 fights at that point, and always started to feel some consequences of the sport at that point. I felt concussed a little bit. I had to go through surgery. Weight cut was not something that was making me happy, you know. So at that moment, I decided, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to do something else, be a teacher. You know, I decided to retire at the moment. Okay, I was pretty decided. It was a moment that I wasn't training to fight, wasn't training anything. And then they announced the transition to the UFC, and my name was in it. So I was pulled back to the game because I said I did so many fights. Now I'm gonna have a UFC fight, another opportunity, the biggest fight of my career. So I have to do it.
And who do you think was the best fighter in the WC?
I think I will say Jose Aldo, the WC Jose Aldo, because he was a killer. You know, he didn't give any chance to his opponents. You know, he won everything with so much authority. You know, he knocked out everyone, then fought for the title, won the title against Mike Brown, defended the title a few times. So have to go with him.
Yes, actually, when he fought against Uriah Faber, it was like the moment between the rounds that the corner of Uriah like helped him to go to his corner because he like had a really big problem with his leg because he was so much he absorbed so much kicks in this fight.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, it was Jose Aldo beat him pretty bad. You know, I was there. I fought in the same night, and Aldo was fighting against the crowd. You know, it was in Sacramento the fight, Uriah Faber's town, and he dominated Uriah Faber since the beginning. Uriah Faber was another guy who was very good in the WC since the beginning. He became champion, finished many fights, finished many guys, but he ended up losing to Mike Brown and Jose Aldo.
And is there any fighter from like WC days when it was, let's say, 15 years ago, the fighter that you would like to face in either bantamweight or featherweight division?
Yeah, I think many of them, I think would make a lot of sense. I think the guys who are still in the UFC are Cub Swanson, Dominic Cruz, is also another name. Well, I think these are the only guys who still in the UFC nowadays, yeah, from that time.
I think that your fight against Uriah Faber can be good either like 15 years ago or even now when like if Uriah decided to go back, it would be a fun fight between like two great grapplers.
Oh yeah. I think if he decided to come back, would make a lot of sense that fight. And even if that fight could happen, even in the now UFC Fight Pass have the UFC Fight Pass invitational grappling matches. I think that would be a good match for in a grappling match with the rule set and the way they want. I think it would be a very good match that would attract many eyes to the show.
And you actually had also experience in the like grappling matches in the EBI rules because you many years ago you like started in one of the tournaments. Uh, and also that they have this concept combat jujitsu, so jujitsu with slaps. And do you like overall this idea? Do you like watch it?
I would like to do it. I would want to do the combat jiu-jitsu. I would like to do it, but I think that didn't go forward. I don't see any combat jiu-jitsu shows. I don't see uh, uh, combat jiu-jitsu tournaments anymore. But I would like to do that. Yeah.
And also about WEC, what is like your the best memory from this time from this organization?
With the submissions that I had there, I had 4 wins by submission the first round. I won the WEC bonus 5 times, 4 submissions of the night, and the time that I fought for the title, we won fight of the night. So I think the bonuses, especially the bonus that I won by submission, yeah.
Yes, and
You see that I won 5 bonus in the WEC in 7 fights, and in UFC I win 7 times by submission, and I didn't win any bonus yet.
yes, I actually saw this, and this is kind of crazy because you like had like many submissions in your arsenal. It can be choking, it can be heel hook, kimura, it can be everything, and still they didn't give you. So it's kind of weird, but also there is still a chance probably for you to take some bonuses.
Yeah, because they changed. They don't do submission of the night anymore. They do performance of the night now. So if the guy usually they go for knockouts. They give the performance of the night for knockouts. Even the guy that more than one knockouts they give, and there are many submissions. Usually they give the guys for knockout. You know.
But also in your like UFC career, you had fights against very good former WEC fighters because in your UFC debut, you fought against former champion Mike Brown.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, it was probably the biggest win of your career, like overall career. And I'm not sure if you agree or do you like consider any other win the
I
biggest one?
agree. I agree definitely. Mike Brown was a former champion. I mean, Jose Aldo, who became a champion later, took the belt from him. He beat Uriah Faber twice, and definitely a legend. It was a great fight. Definitely the biggest fight.
And also you had a win, also a North South choke against Josh Grisby. He was 4-0 in WC. He on in one point he was, I believe, scheduled to fight Josaldo. It didn't happen, but he still was like a top level guy, and it was another first round submission win for you against tough opposition. So I think it like showed everybody how good of the grappler in MMA you are.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's true. That time, the one thing is when I UFC called me, I decided to move to featherweight, and it was a very good move at that time for me because I was having so much difficulty to drop to bantamweight, and make me healthy again. So I felt that I could be performance at my very best without being worried about diet, weight cut, and be more focused on be ready for fight. So yeah, I had that fight against Josh Crispy, very tall guy, and Crispy had many wins by submission too. And but one thing that encouraged me to the fight so much is that he had set the ground game way too much. He likes to be on bottom, play guard. So I thought, see if I get on top of him, I'm gonna submit him, and that happened.
In 2014, you had two fights against Johnny Bedford. The
Yeah,
first one was a quite quick one because of the clash of the heads, and there was some of the like maybe bad blood between two of you. But how satisfying was the second fight that when you won in the second round?
very satisfying. That fight was probably. You asked me about my favorite moment in WC. That fight was probably my favorite moment in the UFC. Because I was fighting Brasilia in my hometown. The crowd that was there was not a very big crowd because it was the first fight of the night, but the crowd was supporting me way too much. And on the wings, the crowd supported me very much. And because of that fight, had that animosity, they had a little bit of trash talk about me that was gonna knock me out, and uh, uh, there was some hot blood there, So, and it was actually a very good fight. The first round was like a draw. I had him on a guillotine, and then he escaped. And the next half of the round, he was on top trying to do some ground and pound. And then the second round, we both became intense, striking each other. I landed many strikes on him. Then eventually I swept him and finished him with a Kimura. So it was a very good fight for me.
And right now, do you think that you will be fighting like in next few months in the UFC, or you like prefer to wait because of some reasons and like fight in 2025? What's is like your plan for next
Yeah,
future?
yeah, I still have two fights under contract, and my goal in 2024 is definitely to make these two fights in UFC, and finish my contract. That's definitely my goal
And do you have a fighter in mind right now that you would like to face?
now. Well, I'm getting ready to fight against anybody. The mindset that I'm trying to achieve in my mind is i- right now I don't have an opponent, so I feel that I gotta be ready for the very best. So I feel that I gotta be ready for the top guys. And whoever they give me, who I gonna take. I'm not gonna choose anyone. I can only accept fights from this point. So all I can do is be ready for whoever they give me. And I don't really, at this moment, I don't really care about who it's gonna be. I'm worried about me getting ready, being at my best.
I think that still the Cody Garbrandt fight would be a good one because he was a former champion. He's actually his style is like very fun to watch, and it would be a like he will be try to keep the fight standing, and he will try probably go to the ground. So it would be another like great like mix of styles.
Yeah, I think so too. Unfortunately, that fight didn't happen. I had an injury that was the injury that I felt most pain in my life. I injured my neck, was a hernia, and I was in pain for for, for a time after that. I'm very happy that I could heal back, but it was definitely something that um, I wish I could be doing that fight. You know, would be the biggest fight of my career, and it is like I told you, like very early in the interview, because I thought that I could be retired at this moment, but there was always a bigger opportunity for me. So if I have my next fight, the biggest fight of my career, I have to take because it's the biggest fight. That's the way I feel, you know. So that fight would be pretty big. Now he's gonna fight Davidson Figueiredo, and uh, uh, and hopefully we meet in the future.
Okay, Hani, so many thanks for the conversation. I hope that your next two fights will be against exciting opponents, and of course that there will be another two submissions, maybe this time with two bonuses, because it would be like great to get to like UFC like give you this kind of money and recognition.
Yeah, I hope so too. Getting ready for that.